Welcome to another episode of Follow the Brand. I am your host, Grant McGaw, CEO of 5-Star BDM, a 5-star personal branding and business development company. I want to take you on a journey that takes another deep dive into the world of personal branding and business development using compelling personal story, business conversations, and tips to improve your personal brand. By listening to the Follow the Brand podcast series, you will be able to differentiate yourself from the competition and allow you to build trust with prospective clients and employers. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. Make it one that will set you apart, build trust, and reflect who you are. Developing your 5-star personal brand is a great way to demonstrate your skills and knowledge. If you have any questions for me or my guests, please email me at grant.mcgaugh, spelled M-C-G-A-U-G-H, at 5-star BDM, B for brand, D for development, M for masters.com. Now let's begin with our next 5-star episode on Follow the Brand. Welcome to an exciting episode of the Follow the Brand podcast, where today's story isn't just about healthcare leadership, it is about revolutionizing it with heart and innovation. I am your host, Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, where we help you to build a 5-star brand that people will follow. We're happy to have Celina Valeska-Holson, COO of HCA Florida JFK North Hospital, as our luminary guest. Imagine a journey that starts with the dreams of a young girl with immigrant roots aspiring to neonatology and evolves into a saga of trailblazing leadership and healthcare administration. That's the story of Celina. What's her approach? It's all about infusing empathy into the DNA of hospital operations, champion a workplace culture where every voice matters and psychological safety isn't just a buzzword, but a daily practice. But there's more. Celina's leadership has pioneered innovative technologies like hand-washing systems that go beyond hygiene, cleverly tackling operational challenges like theft. And then there's the way she's redefined the role of a hospital in the community, transforming it from a mere healthcare provider to a cornerstone of community resilience and connection. This episode is more than a conversation. It is a journey into the heart of healthcare, led by a visionary whose story is as compelling as her achievement. Get ready to be captivated by Celina Valeska-Holson's extraordinary narrative, a tale that promises to leave you inspired, informed, and eager to hear more. Don't miss this opportunity to witness a masterclass in leadership that's reshaping the future of healthcare. Let us welcome Celina to the Follow Brand podcast, where we are building a 5-star brand that you can follow. Welcome, everybody, to the Follow Brand podcast. You know, I always come on my show and I always talk about the amazing guests that I have. Well, this week, I am just floored by who I have in the podcast, in the studio. She's going to talk to us about healthcare operations. This is so big. My audience is so full of healthcare executives, not only here in Florida, but throughout the country. We've had a couple of people from her small organization called HCA, but she's going to represent her JFK brand. She's going to tell us a little bit about her story, which I find so interesting, and I am sure you all will find interesting as well. So, Celina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So, Grant, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. Very, very excited to be featured and here today to speak with you. My name is Celina Valeska-Holson. I am a Chief Operating Officer for HCA Florida JFK North Hospital, which is a HCA hospital in the East Florida division. That's part of HCA's network. I've been in my role for about a year and a half now, and with the company for 5 years. So I'm really excited to share some of my learnings and my journey with you all and the audience today.
Well, let's get into that journey because I'm intrigued, right? I do a little research on all my guests, and I look through there and I find my little tidbits, right? And I look at this and I see your career journey was interesting to me because you was in North Carolina, but you end up going to DC and then get into Georgetown. Tell us how you ended up here as the Chief Operation Officer here in Florida.
So, Grant, I'm still trying to figure that out myself. If I'm being honest, I was raised by two immigrant parents. My father migrated from Jamaica to become a United States Marine. My mother immigrated from Ecuador and ended up in the education sphere. So when it came to what you're going to do when you grow up, it's doctor, lawyer, or teacher, right? So I felt that healthcare was where I really thrived because it was one of the few industries I felt that you can't afford to be complacent because you might kill somebody. So this feeling of constant learning and pushing the envelope and not necessarily getting stagnant was something that I was drawn to and challenged by. So I initially wanted to be a neonatologist. The reason being, adults kind of make me nervous. Children make me really nervous. And then I can't watch a healthy birth without crying. So I saw a neonatologist in high school, followed them and loved it. After taking my MCAT twice, I realized that I didn't want my career trajectory to necessarily be predicated on how I would do on a standardized test because I'm terrible at them. And so I went to dinner with a cousin of mine and she's like, Celina, you're really involved in your sorority, right? You like organizational change management. You love people. Can't you do that in healthcare? And I'm like, no, otherwise nobody's going to take me seriously because I'm not a physician. And what she said to me still rings true, which was, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to know what you're talking about. And so that started my journey into researching what healthcare administration was. I will even tell you, Grant, up until my second semester of grad school, the only reason I chose operations is because that's what everybody else at the table said. So it wasn't until I got involved with NAHSC and I met you and other leaders in the healthcare space, specifically with HCA, that showed me what it meant to be an operator, what that looked like. And so I took the opportunity with HCA to do a 1-year fellowship with them. I was in their restructured residency program. And then from there, I guess they think I'm doing a great job. So that's how I ended up here after I started my career in Florida on the West Coast in Largo. And then I was actually asked to go out to California to help serve and work with an amazing leader out there, Jackie Van Blaricum, and then was asked to come out here. So this is really exciting and still kind of seeing what every day brings. Again, I came into this career not knowing what it is that I'm signing up for. So every day keeps me on my toes and I love what I do.
I love it too. I'm listening and I'm learning. And I'm more interested in your operational philosophy because something about you is resonating with your peer group, is resonating within the organization of HCA. They don't just make anybody, their chief operation officer of a hospital because it's so important. Like you said, their lives are at stake. So whoever's at that helm is somebody that's very responsible. How would you describe your philosophy?
I would say I have three pillars that I live my life by, Grant. And I think that what's made me successful has been operating by these three, which is being empathetic in nature, holding your team accountable, and being authentic to who you are and yourself, right? And what I found is that all three of those things coalesce into this beautiful product of like people doing what they should be doing. So if you give people a platform or a work environment that makes them feel psychologically safe enough to be themselves. And you, in turn, as the leader, bring yourself to work, not this suit or this stuffy persona, I'm an executive, but no, like you get to meet Celina at work. That in turn allows them to be comfortable. They bring their authenticity. That turns into them loving on people, right? I feel that my boss loves on me, so I'm going to love on my people. And you can't love somebody and not hold them accountable. That's just how life works. And so I think I won't say I necessarily have like a Disney perspective to how I manage, but it is very much focused on just loving people and just holding them accountable through everything.
No, I think that's great. You have to hold them accountable. But if they're buying into your program, they're on your team, right? So they're not just doing it because you said to do it, or some paperwork came through and just to do it. No, they're involved, and they'll make suggestions. People, when they're involved, they make suggestions like, you know what, maybe we should look at it like this. So it's more of a collaborative style, which I think is taking shape in a lot of organizations today. So it's not so hierarchical, top to bottom. It's more, across the globe, and everybody has an equal stake in being successful. And I think people resonate with that. And I've heard some of the challenges, not just operational challenges in healthcare right now, because of what happened out of COVID. There's a great exodus, right? There's a great resignation body. There's such a shortage and things of that nature. What are some of the most significant challenges that you're facing right now from an operational perspective?
So I think for me, it was glaringly apparent that we had a talent deficit, right? When it came before the pandemic, everyone was worried and projecting a nursing shortage. And we saw it, right? We absolutely saw it. We felt it. And now we're overcoming it. But I don't think we did a good job in predicting the ancillary services or the support services that we would in turn need to help support nursing that we're still having trouble recruiting. So I think back, I went to dinner 2 weeks ago and just randomly met a RT that was traveling at another hospital. And I'm like, it's 2023. Technically, COVID ended, we'll call it 22, right? And they're still paying for respiratory therapist travel contracts. I think about the imaging space, the phlebotomist space, the pharmacy space, all of these, we'll call them trades, right? Or specialty areas, nuclear medicine, that nobody, I think, really was, I don't say worried about, but we weren't talking about it. Everyone was focused on a nursing shortage. And so now what we're finding is we got to build this bench of people who want to go to school and go shoot x-rays, right? Or the people who want to go to medical school like me, right? But not necessarily need that gap year. What can you do? What trade can you do that will put you in a hospital to get your experience, but also put some money in your pocket? And I think what we've done as a hospital, what HCA has done, is really go back to growing our own. So I think back to, we have a program here called the StarTech program that we instituted for pharmacy technicians. We saw that we had a deficit in pharmacy techs and high schools aren't really teaching it, that kind of stuff. Well, HCA created their own training program where you could take somebody that doesn't have pharmacy experience, get them certified, paid for it through HCA, and they can work the floor. So the biggest success story there was having one of our employees that worked in the kitchen that always wanted to work in the pharmacy from the time she was little and could never afford to go back to school. Well, she found this program and now she's a StarTech with us, right? So thinking about how we grow our own to fill some of these gaps is huge. I think about boots on the ground recruitment. So you can see I'm in scrubs today. I was in the OR, but it's also not beneath me to go to a high school event or an imaging school or a pre-med program and give a presentation about who we are as a hospital, who we are as a company as HCA, and try to bring people in there. And what I've found is that, one, there's not a lot of executives doing it. And two, having people that look like me from an age perspective as well kind of opens their mind to say, hold on, like maybe I could start in imaging, but I could maybe be a CEO one day or a COO one day. Absolutely. So I think it again, getting back to honestly, boots on the ground types of recruitment, getting up from behind your desk, and creating systems and a way to engage your employees to continue their education, to push themselves to be more, whether that's a formal program like we have with HCA with StarTech, or just being able to show them, hey, listen, these are all the benefits we have for you to get tuition reimbursement, loan forgiveness. But I think it's just pushing and our staff and pouring into them.
No, oh my God, I'm glad you said that. This is the awareness that we need to have. This is one of the reasons I even do this podcast in the first place. So people are aware of options, that they have. There are opportunities,
Yes.
Not just pigeonhole yourself. Because I heard you saying earlier, hey, when I thought of healthcare and I'm thinking, all right, I'm thinking doctor, I'm thinking nursing. I didn't know about administration or how to operate in a hospital. There's so many facets. It's not just the clinical aspects. There's a lot
Correct.
of other things going on that you can be a part of.
Absolutely. Grant, if I would have known, and that's what I still kind of bang my head against the wall, because I'm like, Celina, you volunteered in a hospital all through high school. Like, you saw imaging techs, you saw pharmacy but it never occurred to me that was an option, right? And so I agree with you. It is just making it point blank period and putting it in people's faces that no, this is a career path, but you don't have to get stuck here, right? Or you don't have to start in a residency to become a CEO, right? I know of I think he's a physical therapist. He is a physical therapist as a CEO. So there are many different avenues. And I think similar to how we kind of get siloed in our own organizations in healthcare, we got to kind of lift the blinders up a little bit and start to reimagine what a job in this industry looks like.
Reimagine. Let's take that word. I love that. Let's reimagine. Oh, yeah. We need to reimagine healthcare in our delivery model as a whole, from the people through the government, through the payers, to the actual providers, and then the patients, because the people become the patients. Mm-hmm. Right? We need to understand, because right now the way it's set up is very, very difficult dealing with from financial metrics, right? It's very, very hard to run these systems. So when we talk about healthcare innovations, because I got to put my tech hat on. Yes. I got to put my tech hat on. And there's a lot of things happening now. The adoption rates, now we've got telehealth. We started to do remote patient monitoring. I was at the HIMSS conference, which you spoke at, which was awesome. And they started to talk about, hey, it's okay for healthcare to be a little bit behind some of these other industry in the adoption of these techs, because they have to go first, because they're not affecting lives. We're affecting lives. We have to make sure this works great. What are some of the innovations that you've been exposed to, that you've seen, that you feel that might be something that actually could be a game changer for you?
I think the biggest thing for me, Grant, was seeing the implementation of telehealth, from the use of like teleintensivists to continue providing critical care to the patients in our community. So, JFK North 280-bed hospital, I would say we've done a fantastic job in cementing our footprint in the behavioral health space. We do a phenomenal job. Their program is great. But I would say over the last 3 years, we've worked and had the ability to have a leader that is a visionary when it comes to growing the medical and acute side of the business, right? And so being able to leverage teleintensivists to maintain the acuity here at this hospital and continue getting, because ultimately it comes back to staff, right? But continuing to get staff comfortable and familiar and exposed to some of these more acute type of patients, and keep their skills up has been great. We've been able to grow business that way. We've been able to cultivate new relationships with physicians that way, and use technology not as a means to say, oh, it's just a because some people like it's a Band-Aid because we don't have like the living person. But for us, it's a yes and strategy. Yes, we have tele-intensivists, and we also have APPs that are here 7 days a week that can physically go see your patients as well, right?
This episode is brought to you by 5-Star BDM. 5-Star BDM is a professional consulting and advisory group keenly focused on business development services for small to mid-sized businesses and entrepreneurs. Although every business is unique, they often share challenges that can be addressed through smart branding. Services include process improvement in operations, digital strategy and transformation, business intelligence, digital marketing, and personal branding. Our 5-Star business and personal branding company has helped a number of professionals and organizations to optimize and grow. The result is more business, more opportunities, better reach, positive outcomes. Please visit www.5starbdm.com to learn more and view all the episodes of Follow the Brand.
So I've not, this was the first time that I've seen that level of technology be used to expand and grow a business. I think another area, and this is at a hospital that I was at when I first started, was the implementation of hand washing technology. So HCA, when I came into the organization, I was part of a hospital of the future, which meant that we got all of the fun techie things first. And one of the things that we had was Intelligent Insights, and it was a hand washing platform that tracked when you sanitized before and after you went into a room, if you used like actual soap and water, when you used it, where you used it. And not only were we able to track, obviously, compliance, right? But if we had, goodness forbid, an HAI, we could review data retrospectively to say, okay, let's look at trends of how people entered the room and how that hand washing occurred. I think even one time we leveraged it to investigate like missing property at one point, right? Who entered the room, who came out of the room, because you can't physically put cameras in a patient room. So that was another way in which I was like, this technology stuff is pretty interesting, and you can use it to do so many different things.
Wow. Well, you gave us all, and like that's what I need people, users, our community to understand. Technology is not a replacement tool. It's an enablement tool. It enables you to do things that you couldn't do before, either through it does it faster, quicker. It can be used for better precision for certain things, and obviously for communication. So use the tool, understand. Yes. But we need people like yourself to understand, and from my technology lens, where is the friction? Where are you having the problems? By understanding, like, hey, stuff is walking away. Is there any way that we can utilize technology in a not an intrusive way, but in a way that augments, the workflow? I'm all about augmenting the workflow. Let's make it easier. You're a nurse, you're doing 12 hours. The last thing you need to do is screw around with some techie thing.
Yes, exactly.
You want the techie thing to be in the background doing what you needed to do. So when you need information, do you need intelligence? Do you need some insight? Boom, you've got it. Now that's how I envision the use of technology. Now, you've done a lot in community engagement. You kind of talked about that before. It seems like that's something you're very, very interested in. Now, because you've done a lot of work with NAHSE, right? Yeah. You did a lot of work in the schools. I've seen that. What motivates you to do that?
I would say, Grant, my career, and not even my career, but like my life would not be what it was had I not had people that poured into me at various times. So I think about, my youth group at church when I was in high school. I think about my, oh my goodness, like all my teachers coming up through middle school. I even had, for my, was it my grad school graduation? Yes, my grad school graduation, my high school English teacher showed up from 12th grade. So I credit all of who I am to the village that outraised me. And if I can be one person in somebody's life that could give that feedback or ask that question or challenge a belief that is going to reimagine their way of thinking of their trajectory or what they want to do, then that's it. I feel I have an obligation to do that for my community. So and I get emotional thinking about it because it means so much. And I recognize that there are many people that don't have that. And so it's something that, a gap that I know that we need to fill in order to make sure that we have more people at the table, young people, whoever at the table to help make these decisions and fill some of these labor gaps that we have in the industry.
That is so important. So important. That's why the give back, to the reach back. We have to understand what the impact, let's say, of a hospital system is on a community. Where do you sit in the community life cycle? Where are you at in that? And a lot of times you think about that, man, it's in using that as an analogy, you are the hero in a lot of those stories. That when something went the wrong way and you needed help, it's a part of that cycle, whether, law enforcement had to come and somebody had to transport you. You're in an ambulance. You have to go to a hospital. Somebody's got to be knowledgeable enough about your situation that they can actually help to repair you. These are traumatic crisis situations that, man, you probably see it from the beginning when it first happens. Then you see it. Is it nip and tuck? Is one of those things? Is it where it's gonna go? And then you hope it turns out for the best. And then when it does, and that person's laying there and they're like, my God, Celina, you and your team, I'm so glad you were here.
Right. And Grant, I think back to the last NAHSE conference that I was at in Atlanta. I went to just a mixer, and it was for people that lived in Arizona and California. Only reason I went is because a friend invited me. But regardless, I go, and somebody asked me naturally, where do you live? And I was like, oh, I live in Florida. I work at a hospital in West Palm Beach. And the person's like, where in West Palm, and what's the name of your hospital? So I told him, and he was like, oh my goodness, my grandmother was a housekeeper at that hospital when it was named something different. And she used to come and pick me up on her breaks and take me back to the hospital. I would do my homework in the break room, and she would go work up on the floors. So when you talk about the impact of a hospital to a community, it's something that it wasn't until this role that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's almost 50 years of history, and you've got generations of people that have come through JFK North, what used to be Humana, what used to be Columbia, what used to be 45th. So there's something to be said about that, Grant. And so I think that my boss, Ashley, does a phenomenal job of setting the example of what it means to be active in your community. That woman sits on boards for ACHE, for the chamber. She's involved in everything. But it's something that I realize as an aspiring CEO, it's necessary. You have to be involved in everything, because not only are you sharing the great work that your hospital is doing, but you're hearing about how you can continue to benefit, uplift, and support a community that, you just happen to inherit when you assume the role of CEO. So all credit goes to Ashley Bertuno, because I will tell you that she lit a fire under me to really think about what involvement in the community means.
And she's a great person. I know her through the ACHE here in South Florida as well. Wonderful, wonderful person. I'm going to leave you with one more question. This question is for our young careerists, or people that are probably still in their grad programs, and they're studying, they're learning, they're just starting to get their feet, or to say get their toes wet, in the waters of healthcare. As you look at your career, and you look at how your mindset was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, wherever it might be, and where you're at now, you say, you know what, I wish I knew this one thing, because this changed my understanding of what it's like to really run a hospital as opposed to theoretically run a hospital?
How to take you out of it. So my first hospital, I had the experience of seeing a complete changeover in leadership and seeing what that did to culture. And I was working for a CEO at the time who I credit to teaching me how to operate an HCA. That every time something would go wrong, Grant, like, my hair stands up, it would stand up tall. And I would just go out. This is terrible. This is bad, blah, blah, blah. And he asked me one day, he's like, why are you so angry? And I said, because this wasn't executed a certain way. And he's like, but why are you, Celina, so angry that this did not execute? What did it do to you personally? And I said, nothing. And he's like, so that's the problem, right? You're taking things related to processes, related to systems that may have never worked prior to you being here, and you're internalizing all of them, and you're making it a reflection of who you were. And he was right. I started to think that every single time somebody complained that the kitchen floor was dirty, it meant that I was doing a terrible job as a leader, and I did not deserve to be there, and my direct report was going to hear from me because of that. And when he told me to take you out of it, it took me about 2 years to put the practice in place, Grant, because I am such a perfectionist and a control freak that it is hard for me to do that. But I also realized that when I walk into a hospital, none of this is my fault. None of this is anybody's fault, right? Stuff happens. We run a 24/7 business that's run by humans. Like, there is naturally going to be error that occurs and breakdown. So it's making sure that your why is not centered on your advancement or what you can get out of it or how quickly you can move to the next step. Your why has to be centered on whatever it is that inspires you to keep coming to work and making a difference. And not just for the patients, but the people that you lead to, because ultimately those are the ones at the bedside delivering the care. So if they're happy, everybody else will take place. But I do think getting you out of it is key.
Amply stated. So hard to do, but that because I know you're a high achiever. You're a high achiever. You got a high motive. You want things done. But having that, it's emotional intelligence, which who has a class on that?
Yeah.
And situational awareness. Where do you find that out? Like, so you do get great theoretical knowledge. So I definitely encourage all our children and people that are young careers to continue to get that, but understand you're going to learn a lot more on the job that you'll probably ever learn from just reading about it. So yes. doing the work. You have been wonderful. So thank you for being a guest on the Follow Brand podcast. I want everybody to know now, what is your best way to reach you? Is it LinkedIn? Let us know.
Yes, LinkedIn is the best way. Absolutely. So drop me a message there and you will get a response.
All right. Well, this has been wonderful. One more thing, got one more plug, because this is where I met you. That's the NAHSE. Why NAHSE? Why are you a part of NAHSE? Why is that so? When I said it, I know we just changed our acronym. It's a rebranding. Give me a little leeway, a little rebranding, but we're getting there. But because this is so important to understand that why this organization for you is so important.
Grant, these spaces, we were not included in these spaces when they were originally built, period, right? Let's call a spade a spade. So to have an organization that created space at the table, right? When Everett Fox decided that he was going to start this, and continues to advocate to make sure that people of color are represented at the table is so important, and it is needed. And I'm excited. So I don't know if you saw LinkedIn, Grant, but I was elected as a parliamentarian for the NAHSE Florida chapter, right?
All right.
So I am so excited to continue working and partnering with this organization and bringing awareness to it. Because I'll admit, prior to attending my first conference in grad school, I did not know it existed. But I was so grateful to know it did exist, because when I entered the workforce, I had a family of people that I can go to and I could say, okay, this is a safe space. I need help with this. So that is my why. It's a needed space. And there is so much more work that has to be done. So the more hands, the better.
That is so wonderful. I cannot wait. We're going to work together. I'll be the social media chair, so I'll be on the outside looking in, but I cannot wait. We had a wonderful time when I saw you at the Executive Leadership Forum just recently, and also at the HIMSS Integrate Conference, in which you were a speaker. I just love everything you do for our community. Thank you again for being a guest on the show. I encourage your entire audience, the entire HCA family, to tune into all the episodes of Follow Brand at 5-Star BDM. That is B for Brand, D for Development, Infomasters.com. Until next time, you take care, Celina.
Bye, Grant. Thank you so much.